because obviously um, the preseason debut just happened and we saw the Knicks win. Now, obviously, the 76ers, they didn't and they don't have Joel Embiid, they don't have Paul George, so we're not going to look at that win and be like, the Knicks just dominated the 76ers, right? But what I do want to say about the win and how the Knicks played and stuff like that is we even heard comments from Mike Brown talking about um, the Knicks playing faster this season. And, you know, I think they shot like 39 threes or something like that in the preseason game. Again, the numbers are not necessarily, um, the most relevant because it's a preseason game, but the comments of Mike Brown saying, like, we want to play faster, and the pace looked like they were playing faster. And just in general, that he was saying, like, he wants them to play even faster than that. So, if that's the case, and this is actually something I've said about the Knicks, previously when they were, under Tibbs. Tibbs obviously is a polarizing coach. He gets criticism, some fair, some unfair, and stuff like that. Unfortunately, again, when you're coaching the Knicks, especially, you're going to get extra scrutiny, based on what you're doing. With that being said, though, one of the things that I have said about the Knicks consistently for years is that I'm like, why don't they play faster? And every team has their own pace, of course. Um, and I don't expect the Knicks to, be the number one pace in the entire league. Like, that's not realistic. And I don't think they have to be in order to be effective because you do want to have Jalen Brunson, go ISO, one on one, stuff like that. You do want Cat to do some ISO one on one because we know Jalen Brunson specifically, we know that's why he won Clutch Player of the Year. He is he is that guy in the fourth quarter, and that's going to be a lot of dribble, 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 ISO, footwork, all that stuff. So you don't want to get rid of that. That's not what we're trying to do. Because if I'm the Knicks, that's not what they're trying to do. But I have been saying for years that I feel like they need to play faster. Like, there is no reason that they should be so slow in pace when they have a bunch of guys who can run up and down, especially Josh Hart. Josh Hart, the best comparison I can make that a lot of people would understand the example, even though a lot of people know who Josh Hart is now, of course, but Bruce Brown on the Denver Nuggets, that championship year especially, and you saw it, I would say probably later in the finals, later in the playoffs rather, more so. I don't know, I don't remember as much in the earlier rounds if he was, exerting it as much. But Bruce Brown, especially in the finals, push the pace, get the ball all the way down the court, push the pace, layup, fast break, maybe Aaron Gordon wide open for a dunk, because Aaron Gordon's always wide open for a dunk. Listen, if you are playing the Denver Nuggets and you do not guard Aaron Gordon, he will get a dunk every time. A lob dunk, a lob to the rim every time. Like, how nobody guards that, I don't know. That is beyond me. I don't understand that. Um, anyway, the point is, like, Bruce Brown, though, get the ball, push the pace, full court, run with him. Tyrese Halliburton, same thing. Although it's a little bit different with Tyrese Halliburton because Tyrese Halliburton's more so like outlet pass, to Siakam, who's running down the court, or Obi Toppin and stuff like that. Bruce Brown's a better example because Bruce Brown would go coast to coast himself, or sometimes, give it to somebody if they're down the floor. But Bruce Brown would go coast to coast. That's what Josh Hart does. You know, that's how you push the pace and stuff like that. And so I say all that to say, when you have someone, especially like Josh Hart, who does that type of stuff, you don't want to play slow because you want to unlock Josh Hart's ability to do that. And it's not just him. Like Jalen Brunson is not. He's not John Wall in his prime, right? Shout out John Wall, because we know John Wall was fast. Like John Wall was fast. So Jalen Brunson's not going to be that. That's fine. But there's no reason that Jalen Brunson can't or couldn't play any faster either. And Mikal Bridges and OG, like, they're athletic guys, Again, they don't have to be, the fastest pace in the entire league, but to be as slow of a pace team as they were, to me, that was one of my biggest issues with the Knicks for years. Because for a few reasons. One, when you play slow, again, there's a time and place for it. You want that ISO Jalen Brunson, fourth quarter takeover. But the issue with playing slow a lot is, one, there's less possessions. That's not as much of a concern for me, but generally speaking in the NBA, it's become kind of a possession game, for better or for worse. And so the less possessions means the less amount of, potential shots for you, which means less chances. Again, it's good in some ways and bad in some ways, depending on, the circumstance. But when you do have less possessions, if you are not efficient with your shots, there's less opportunities for you to, get some points on the board. Again, some of that is, good, with the NBA. And some of that, is not the best because it, whatever. Anyway, that's not the point. So one, less possessions. That's one thing. Again, that's not my main concern with it, but that is definitely something to consider. Two, and this is more my main concern with teams who play slower, unless like there's a clear advantage to them consistently playing slower. And that is, you are letting the defense off the hook. And the reason I say that is the defense, when you slowly dribble the ball up the court, take your 6 seconds or whatever off the shot clock, the defense gets to set itself. The defense gets to rest. I know 6 seconds is 6 seconds, but it matters, Every, extra breathe in, breathe out makes a difference for every NBA player. So the defense gets to set, and they get to see kind of, what play you're running because they're observing where everyone's standing on the floor while you're bringing the ball up the floor. They see where everyone else is standing on offense. And gives the opportunity for the defense to rest. And it also lets the defense off the hook in the sense that they don't have to, and it's kind of the same concept of like making them tired, but like it's not exactly the same thing. But they don't have to chase you down the court so you don't get an open layup because you were pushing the pace, fast break. They don't have to worry about that. It becomes predictable. And at a certain point, NBA players are known, especially nowadays, for being crafty and, changing the plays on the fly, which is not necessarily new. Like, I'm sure players back in the day would, change, the play based on what the defense is giving them too. But what I'm saying is, like, there's only so many players on the court. There's only so many plays, you can kind of run. Like, there are a lot, but there is kind of a limitation, especially depending on your personnel. And so if the defense sees the 5 guys who are on the floor for your team and they know what your strengths and weaknesses are and they know, what you're probably going to run based on, your tendencies and the 5 men out there and stuff like that, it kind of becomes predictable, which is something I have said about the Knicks, and that partly has to do with being slow. Because when you're going fast, like the defense, even if you run the same exact play, right? But if you dribble it up the court, you know, 2 seconds off the 2, 3 seconds off the shot clock, whatever, and you pass the ball fast, the defense is like, wait, like we weren't set, like we weren't ready, right? Even if Mikal Bridges, for example, is still standing in the corner for the 3-point shot, same exact play, but if the defense got to analyze and see it first, now Jaylen Brown, I don't know why I'm doing Celtics Knicks, but I just feel like it's an example people understand. And Celtics Knicks, it's just obviously a popular topic. Um, but now Jaylen Brown has the time and the ability to see the play happening and get over to cover Mikal Bridges. Whereas if you go fast, maybe not necessarily. And again, I don't think every play should be like the Pacers. It should be like the Pacers, It works for the Pacers, but sometimes it's like, you know, a different personnel, you know what I mean? Um, and even in the end, the Pacers have, their own set of issues. But everyone's not going to be the Pacers. You don't have Tyrese Halliburton and the personnel of Obi Toppin, who's literally going to go down the court every 2 seconds. So that being said, my point is like the ability to switch it up and, don't be as predictable with the slow pace, stuff like that. Because I just feel like it makes it easier to read the plays. I don't know. I'm not out there. I'm not an NBA player. I can't tell you if it's actually easier, but I feel like if I was an NBA player, it would be easier because, again, I'd be able to analyze what's going on the floor. So, to go back to the original, point or topic of this video, I like the idea of the Knicks playing faster that Mike Brown is trying to implement. Somebody said, do I write for Sports Illustrated? Nope. I do not. Why? Do I look familiar or something? I do not write for Sports Illustrated. This is my only content creation, whatever. This is the only place I create NBA like social media, stuff like that. Obviously multiple platforms, but yeah, social media. I don't write for Sports Illustrated, but if Sports Illustrated wants to reach out and, chat, shout out to Sports Illustrated, I guess. But no, I don't. Somebody said, get Cat the ball and tell Jalen Brunson to stop. I think he means stop dribbling the air out of the basketball. Well, I don't agree with that. I feel like that was I feel like that was kind of a narrative that started going around during the playoffs. And I do agree that Jalen Brunson, as the leader and star of the team, needs to be able to, pass the ball to his teammates. This is kind of more about the predictability thing that I was saying. And he recognizes that and he's smart. So I don't think that'll be an issue, but I wouldn't say he dribbled the air out of the ball. Like, I feel like he was, he was kind of doing what he was told. Like, I feel like those were the plays they were running. I don't feel like it was just Jalen Brunson being like, let me just, hog the ball at times. I wouldn't call him a ball hog, but that's kind of, how I saw it. It just goes back to what I said earlier about the pace, predictability. That's the same thing. Someone said, I don't think Sports Illustrated is a thing anymore. Oh, I think they're still around. Maybe they're not like, big time like they were, I guess, back in the day. I don't know. I don't follow Sports Illustrated like that, but I think they're still around. I think they're still doing their thing from what I remember. So anyway, yeah. So let's see what the Knicks do this season. But I think if they increase the pace and do kind of what Mike Brown was saying, like they're talented. They got a shot to, make some noise and do stuff in the playoffs. So thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. I hope you enjoyed and see you soon.